I always thought that if my marriage ever fell apart, it would be because of something dramatic. Maybe I would come home early and find another man in my bedroom. Maybe Claire would drain our savings account and run away to Costa Rica with a yoga instructor named Phoenix. Maybe I would discover that our entire marriage had been part of an elaborate government experiment to test how long one man could survive on passive-aggressive comments and lukewarm coffee. But no. My marriage started falling apart because my wife's sister borrowed my car, again, without asking, and returned it with the gas tank so empty the dashboard light looked like it was begging for hospice care. My name is Adam. I'm 39 years old, an engineer, a husband, and a father of 2. At least, I was all of those things at the beginning of this story. Claire and I had been married for 7 years. Claire was 37, smart, beautiful, organized, and one of those people who could turn a chaotic room into a peaceful space in 15 minutes. She remembered birthdays, packed lunches with tiny notes inside, and somehow knew where everyone's shoes were at all times. If our house was a small country, Claire was the Department of Interior, Education, Emotional Weather, and Snacks. We had 2 kids, our son Noah, who was 6, and our daughter Lily, who was 4. We lived in a quiet suburb with trimmed lawns, polite neighbors, and homeowners who pretended not to judge each other's trash bins. It was a good life, not perfect. Claire and I had arguments. We argued about money sometimes, about parenting, about whose turn it was to unload the dishwasher, about why I apparently breathe like a haunted radiator when I sleep. But most of the time, we worked things out. We were good at compromise, except when it came to one person. Claire's younger sister, Ashley. Ashley was 34, divorced, and possessed the survival instincts of a raccoon in a grocery store parking lot. I don't mean Ashley was evil. Ashley was exhausting. She had the kind of life where emergencies bloomed around her like seasonal flowers. Her rent was late, her car made a noise, her phone bill was higher than expected, her ex was being difficult, her dog needed watching, her friend canceled plans, her boss didn't understand her, her landlord was being weird, her bank account was acting funny, which was Ashley language for, I spent money like I was personally trying to stimulate the economy. And every single time, Claire was there. With money, with time, with rides, with sympathy, with our guest room, with my tools, with my weekend, with my sanity. At first, I tried to be understanding. Family helps family. I believe that. I still do, actually. When Ashley got divorced, we let her stay with us for 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks became 5, then 6, then just until I get back on my feet, which, in Ashley's case, appeared to require a construction crew, a federal grant, and maybe a miracle performed by a licensed saint. Still, I didn't complain much. She was Claire's sister. She was going through a hard time. I could be patient. Ashley always needed something. Not huge things at first. $20 here, a ride there. Could she borrow Claire's jacket? Could she use our printer? Could she leave some boxes in our garage? Could she watch TV after the kids went to bed? And because each individual request was small, saying no made you feel like a monster. That was Ashley's true talent. She didn't ask for your whole arm. She asked for one finger at a time. Then, 6 months later, you looked down and realized you were waving hello with a stump. Claire always defended her. Always. If Ashley was late, Claire said, she has a lot going on. If Ashley didn't pay back money, Claire said, she's struggling right now. If Ashley broke something, Claire said, it was an accident. If Ashley took something without asking, Claire said, she probably didn't think it was a big deal. And my personal favorite, she's my sister. That sentence could end any discussion. Ashley could have backed a stolen forklift through our living room wall, and Claire would have stood there in drywall dust saying, Adam, she's my sister. And I would be the bad guy for asking whether the forklift had insurance. Over the years, I brought it up carefully, very carefully, because discussing Ashley with Claire was like trying to defuse a bomb. One night, After Ashley borrowed $200 and then posted pictures from a wine bar 3 days later, I said, "Claire, I think we need to start setting some boundaries." Claire was folding laundry on the bed. She didn't look up. She said her friend paid for that. Of course she did. Claire's hand stopped moving. What does that mean? It means Ashley always has an explanation. She's had a rough few years. So have a lot of people. Most of them don't use our checking account as a community fountain. Claire gave me that look. The look married men know. The one that says, "You have now entered dangerous territory, traveler. Turn back or prepare to sleep under a blanket made entirely of consequences." "She's my sister," Claire said. There it was, the magic spell. Conversation over. Another time, Ashley borrowed my socket set and returned it missing 2 pieces. I asked her about it. She shrugged and said, "I don't know. Maybe they were already missing." They were not already missing. I know this because I am an engineer, and engineers are deeply boring people who know where all the sockets are. When I told Claire, she said, "It's just tools." That hurt more than it should have. Not because of the tools. Because nothing that belonged to me seemed to matter once Ashley was involved. My time was helping family. My money was being supportive. My property was just stuff. My frustration was being dramatic. Claire never saw the pattern. Or maybe she saw it and decided looking away was easier. That's the thing about patterns. Once you notice one, you can't unsee it. And with Ashley, the pattern was always the same. She created a problem. Claire softened it. I absorbed it. Then everyone moved on like nothing had happened. Except me. I remembered. Not because I wanted to keep score, but because at some point, when someone keeps stepping on your foot, it becomes less about the shoe and more about the fact that they know your foot is there. The final version of this disaster started on a Thursday evening. I had just gotten home from work. I walked into the kitchen, loosened my tie, and found Claire standing by the counter with her phone in her hand. She had that expression, the "someone is in crisis, and unfortunately it is now our crisis" expression. I didn't even have to ask, but I did, because apparently I enjoy pain. "What happened?" Claire looked up. "It's Ashley." Of course it was. There are constants in life. "What now?" I asked. Claire took a breath. "She needs somewhere to stay." I closed my eyes. For 1 second. Just one. A tiny emotional reboot. "How long?" "A couple weeks." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because my soul had briefly left my body, looked at the situation and said, "You're on your own, buddy." Claire frowned. "Adam." "What?" "She's in a bad spot." "She's always in a bad spot." "Ashley lives in a bad spot. She has mail forwarded there." Claire crossed her arms. "That's not fair." "Is it inaccurate?" "She had a fight with her roommate." "Of course she did." "Adam." I rubbed my face. "Did she ask you, or did you already say yes?" Claire didn't answer quickly enough. And that was the answer. I stared at her. "You already said yes." "She's my sister." If I had $1 for every time Claire said that, I could have bought Ashley her own apartment and saved myself the divorce. "Claire," I said slowly, "you didn't even talk to." She needed an answer. "And I'm your husband. I live here too." "I know that." "Do you?" Her face tightened. That was the moment I should have pushed harder. That was the moment I should have said, "No, not this time." But the kids were in the living room. Dinner was half made. Claire looked stressed. And because I was still under the tragic misconception that being reasonable would eventually be rewarded, I sighed and said, "Fine. 2 weeks." Claire softened immediately. "Thank you." I pointed at her gently. 2 weeks, Claire. Not 2 months. Not until she finds herself. Not until Mercury exits whatever emotional parking garage she's stuck in. 2 weeks. Claire nodded. "I'll talk to her." I believed her. That was cute of me. Ashley arrived the next evening with 3 suitcases, 2 plastic storage bins, a laundry basket full of shoes, and the confidence of someone checking into a resort she had no intention of paying for. She hugged Claire. She hugged the kids. Then she gave me a bright smile and said, "Thanks for letting me crash here, Adam." Crash. A word that would become increasingly appropriate. "No problem," I said, because apparently I was determined to go down as history's politest idiot. For the first few days, Ashley was on her best behavior. She complimented dinner. She offered to help with dishes, then somehow disappeared before touching a sponge. She played with the kids for 10 minutes at a time, which made Claire look at her like she had personally invented ant-based childcare. She told us she was actively looking for a new place. I later learned that Ashley's definition of actively looking meant scrolling apartment listings for 6 minutes while eating our cereal. After the first week, things began to slide. Small things. She left coffee mugs everywhere. She took long showers in the morning when everyone else needed the bathroom. She ate the snacks we packed for the kids' lunches. She parked in my spot in the driveway because, as she explained, it was open. The second week, she borrowed Claire's clothes without asking. Then she used our laundry detergent and left wet clothes in the washer overnight, creating a smell that could have legally applied for citizenship. Then she started using my tools. Not for anything useful. Ashley had discovered some DIY video online and decided she was going to restore an old side table she found on the curb. For 3 days, our garage looked like a raccoon had opened a furniture business. When I asked her to please clean up, she waved a hand and said, "Relax, I'm still working on it." I looked at the table. The table had 1 leg. It was not in progress. It was in hospice. At the end of week 2, I asked Claire when Ashley was moving out. Claire was rinsing plates at the sink. "She's still looking." Claire, "What?" We said 2 weeks. "I know, but she hasn't found anything yet." "Has she applied anywhere?" "She said she's checking options." "That means no." "You don't know that." "I know Ashley." Claire turned off the faucet. Her shoulders stiffened, and there it was again. The invisible line, the sacred Ashley border. Cross it, and suddenly you weren't a husband expressing concern. You were a cruel man attacking a helpless woman who just happened to treat responsibility like an optional DLC. Claire said, "Can you please not make this harder?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because that sentence perfectly described our marriage whenever Ashley was involved. I looked toward the hallway, where Ashley's shoes were scattered like a small leather explosion. "Sure," I said, and I let it go. Again. That was my specialty by then, letting it go. I let things go until they piled up behind me like unpaid emotional parking tickets. And eventually, someone was going to tow the whole marriage. By the beginning of week 3, I realized something interesting. Ashley had completely unpacked. Not temporarily staying, unpacked. I'm talking full migration. Her shampoo had colonized our shower. Her makeup had spread across the bathroom counter like it was claiming territory for the queen. Her favorite coffee mug somehow ended up in our kitchen cabinet. She'd even bought one of those little fake plants and put it on the dresser in the guest room. Nobody decorates a room they're planning to leave next Tuesday. I brought it up with Claire one evening after the kids were asleep. "So?" I said carefully. Claire looked up from her laptop. "So?" "I noticed Ashley unpacked." Claire shrugged. "She's just trying to feel comfortable." "That's exactly what concerns me." "Adam." "No, seriously. People who are leaving soon don't start decorating." Claire sighed. "You're reading too much into it." "I hope so." I genuinely did. Because I didn't want another argument. I wanted my guest room back. Funny how your standards change in marriage. At 25, I thought happiness meant traveling the world with the woman I loved. At 39, happiness looked suspiciously like having nobody else's shampoo in my bathroom. The following Saturday, I was mowing the lawn. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. I was trying to mow the lawn. The mower refused to start. After 30 minutes of diagnosing the problem, I discovered the fuel can was empty, which made absolutely no sense. I had filled it less than a week earlier. I walked into the garage. Ashley? She looked up from the folding chair she'd dragged into the driveway. She was watching videos on her phone while drinking iced coffee, living her best unemployed life. Yeah? Did you use the gas can? Oh, she smiled. I needed some for my friend's pressure washer. You took it? I was gonna tell you. When? She thought about it. I don't know. Theoretically, she laughed. You always make everything sound so serious. Because apparently wanting to know where my gasoline disappeared to was my villain origin story. I would have appreciated you asking. I knew you'd say yes. That's not the point. See? She pointed at me with her coffee cup. You're stressing again. I stared at her for a second. Then I walked away. Not because she'd convinced me. Because I knew exactly how the conversation would end. She'd call me dramatic. Claire would tell me Ashley didn't mean anything by it. And somehow I'd end up apologizing for creating tension over my own gasoline. A few days later, I came home from work and noticed something odd. My favorite cordless drill wasn't on the shelf. I checked the garage, the basement, the workbench. Nothing. Ashley? She poked her head out of the living room. Yeah? Have you seen my drill? Oh, she smiled again. That smile. That innocent smile people use right before admitting they've committed a minor felony. I borrowed it. When? Yesterday. I looked for it this morning. I forgot to put it back. Where is it? My friend's house. I blinked. You left my drill at someone else's house? She shrugged. I'll get it later. Ashley, it's fine. No, it isn't. It's literally just a drill. No, it's my drill. She rolled her eyes dramatically. You act like I stole your identity. At that exact moment, Claire walked through the front door carrying grocery bags. Perfect timing. Ashley immediately switched expressions. Gone was the amused grin. Suddenly she looked tired, almost hurt. It was like watching someone flip a light switch. Everything okay? Claire asked. Ashley sighed dramatically. Adam's upset because I borrowed his drill. Claire looked at me. Did you? I didn't borrow it. Ashley interrupted. I forgot to mention it. You took it to somebody else's house. I said I'd bring it back. Claire set the bags on the counter. Adam, she'll get it. That's not what I'm upset about. What then? She keeps taking things without asking. Claire looked at Ashley. Ashley gave the world's smallest shrug. I honestly didn't think he'd mind. Claire looked back at me. I don't think she meant anything by it. Of course she didn't. Apparently Ashley wandered through life accidentally making every inconsiderate decision imaginable. By the third week, it was obvious Ashley wasn't treating our house like a temporary stop anymore. She had completely unpacked. Her toiletries filled the bathroom. Her clothes filled the guest room closet. She even bought a little fake plant for the nightstand. Nobody decorates a room they're planning to leave in a few days. I mentioned it to Claire one evening. I think Ashley's getting a little too comfortable. Claire barely looked up from her laptop. She's just trying to feel at home until she finds a place. That's exactly what worries me. She sighed. You're overthinking it. I hoped she was right. She wasn't. As the days went on, Ashley became even more comfortable. She slept late. She rarely cleaned. She never bought groceries. If dirty dishes appeared, she somehow disappeared. It was honestly impressive. The following Saturday, I was mowing the lawn. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. I was trying to mow the lawn. The mower refused to start. After 30 minutes of diagnosing the problem, I discovered the fuel can was empty, which made absolutely no sense. I had filled it less than a week earlier. I walked into the garage. Ashley? She looked up from the folding chair she dragged into the driveway. She was watching videos on her phone while drinking iced coffee, living her best unemployed life. Yeah? Did you use the gas can? Oh, she smiled. I needed some for my friend's pressure washer. You took it? I was going to tell you. When? She thought about it. I don't know. Theoretically? She laughed. You always make everything sound so serious. Because apparently wanting to know where my gasoline disappeared to was my villain origin story. I would have appreciated you asking. I knew you'd say yes. That's not the point. See? She pointed at me with her coffee cup. You're stressing again. I stared at her for a second. Then I walked away. Not because she'd convinced me, because I knew exactly how the conversation would end. She'd call me dramatic. Claire would tell me Ashley didn't mean anything by it. And somehow I'd end up apologizing for creating tension over my own gasoline. A few days later, I came home from work and noticed something odd. My favorite cordless drill wasn't on the shelf. I checked the garage, the basement, the workbench. Nothing. Ashley, I called. Have you seen my drill? Oh, she said casually. I borrowed it. You borrowed it? I left it at a friend's house. I'll get it later. You took my tools to someone else's house without asking? She rolled her eyes. It's just a drill. No, I said. It's my drill. At that exact moment, Claire walked through the front door carrying grocery bags. Perfect timing. Ashley immediately switched expressions. Gone was the amused grin. Suddenly she looked tired, almost hurt. It was like watching someone flip a light switch. Everything okay? Claire asked. Ashley sighed dramatically. Adam's upset because I borrowed his drill. Claire looked at me. Did you? Adam? She'll bring it back. This isn't about the drill, I replied. She keeps taking my things without asking. Claire glanced at Ashley before turning back to me. I don't think she meant anything by it. That sentence again. She never means anything by it. She never intended to. She never thought. And somehow I was always expected to be the one who let it go. That night, after the kids were asleep, I tried one last time. I'm not asking you to choose between me and Ashley, I told Claire. I'm asking you to set boundaries. She's family, Claire answered quietly. So am I. She didn't say anything. I just want this to end. It will. When? Soon. When she finds a place? I nodded. I wanted to believe her. Again. Looking back now, I realized something. Hope can become a bad habit. Every week I kept hoping next week would be different. Next week Ashley would move out. Next week she'd start respecting the house. Next week Claire would finally tell her no. But next week is a dangerous place. Nothing ever actually happens there. Then, somewhere around the middle of month 2, I stopped asking when Ashley was leaving. Not because I'd accepted it, because I was tired of hearing promises that quietly expired. Ashley, meanwhile, had adjusted beautifully to her new lifestyle. She slept late. She rarely cooked. She contributed exactly $0 toward groceries. One Friday evening, I came home exhausted after a 12-hour shift. I dreamed about 2 things during the drive home: a hot shower and 15 uninterrupted minutes on my couch. The universe laughed, because when I pulled into the driveway, my truck was sitting alone. My car was gone. For a second, I thought maybe Claire had taken it. Then I remembered she was working late that day. I pulled out my phone and called her anyway. Hey, she answered. Everything okay? Where's my car? A short pause. Oh, that wasn't the response I was hoping for. What do you mean, oh? Ashley borrowed it. I closed my eyes. She what? She just needed to run a few errands. Claire, did she ask me? Well, no. Did she ask you? Yes. And you said yes. To my car. Adam, it wasn't a big deal. I looked at the empty spot in the driveway. It is when it's not your car. She'll be back soon. How soon? I don't know. Perfect. My own car was apparently operating on Ashley's standard time, somewhere between almost there and maybe tomorrow. About 2 hours later, headlights pulled into the driveway. Ashley stepped out carrying 2 shopping bags like she'd just enjoyed a relaxing afternoon. "Thanks," she called as she tossed me the keys. I caught them, then looked inside the car. The fuel gauge was almost empty. The low fuel light was glowing. She hadn't even bothered to fill it. I took a slow breath. "Ashley." "What?" "Don't ever take my car without asking me again." She looked genuinely confused. "Relax. I'm serious." "So am I." She shrugged. "It's Claire's house too." I stared at her. "No," I said quietly. "It's our house." She smirked. "Same thing." "No." I took one step closer. "It's not the same thing. You don't take someone else's car without permission." Ashley folded her arms. "I brought it back. With an empty tank. You were going to drive it anyway." That was it. No apology, no embarrassment, not even a hint that she'd done anything wrong. Just another excuse. Something inside me finally snapped. Not with yelling, not with insults, just with certainty. "Enough." She blinked. "You need to find somewhere else to stay." The smile disappeared from her face. "What?" "You heard me. This isn't your decision. It is now." Before either of us could say another word, the front door opened. Claire walked inside carrying her purse. She looked from me to Ashley. "What's going on?" Ashley didn't waste a second. Her eyes filled with tears. "Adam just told me to get out." Claire's expression changed instantly. She turned toward me. "Adam?" I raised a hand. "Claire, let me explain." Ashley sniffled loudly behind her. "I didn't even do anything." "Claire," I repeated, "please, just let me tell you what happened." She looked at her sister, then back at me, and I suddenly realized she had already made up her mind. "Explain what?" Claire asked sharply. "That you screamed at my sister?" "I didn't scream. You told her to leave. After she took my car without asking." Ashley immediately shook her head. "I borrowed it." "You borrowed it from who?" I asked. "Because it wasn't from me." Claire held up a hand. "Stop." I looked at her. "Claire, you're only hearing—" "I heard enough." "No, you didn't." I said stop. For a moment, nobody spoke. I honestly thought she'd calm down. Ask Ashley a few questions. Ask me what happened. Anything. Instead, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "If you can't respect my sister—" My stomach dropped. "Then get out." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because surely I'd misunderstood. "You're kidding." "I'm not." "You're throwing me out?" "You heard me." I looked at her for another second, waiting for her to blink, to sigh, to say she was angry, to admit she'd spoken too fast. Nothing. She meant every word. "Claire," I said quietly, "you're not even going to ask what happened?" "I already know enough." "No." I shook my head slowly. "You know Ashley's version." Silence. "That's all you need?" More silence. Ashley stood behind Claire without saying a word. She didn't have to. Claire was doing all the work for her. Finally, I nodded. "Okay?" "Just one word." Claire frowned. I walked past both of them and headed upstairs. "Adam?" Claire called after me. I didn't answer. In our bedroom, I pulled a suitcase from the closet. A few shirts, jeans, underwear, laptop, phone charger, passport, documents, the essentials. Nothing dramatic. No throwing things. No slamming drawers. I could hear footsteps behind me. Claire stood in the doorway. "What are you doing?" I kept folding clothes. "You told me to get out." "I didn't mean—" She stopped herself. I looked up. "You didn't mean what?" She didn't answer. I zipped the suitcase. "Adam, you gave me a choice." I picked up the bag. "So I'm respecting it." Her expression changed. For the first time that evening, She looked nervous. You're seriously leaving? You seemed pretty serious when you told me to. I thought you just needed to cool off. I gave a small, tired smile. So did I. I walked downstairs. The kids were already asleep. Thank God. At least they wouldn't see this. Claire followed me to the front door. Adam, I put my hand on the doorknob. If you change your mind. I turned toward her. You had 1 minute. She frowned. What? 1 minute. I looked at her quietly. That's all I needed. To do what? Tell you what actually happened. Another pause. You didn't even give me that. Then I opened the door and walked out without looking back. I spent the first 3 nights in a hotel, not because I wanted to, because I genuinely had no idea what came next. The room smelled like industrial-strength air freshener and bad decisions. The mattress was somehow too soft and too hard at the same time. And every evening I caught myself reaching for my phone, expecting a message from Claire that simply said, I'm sorry, come home. It never came. Instead, the first text I got was this. Are you coming to Noah's soccer practice tomorrow? Not. Are you okay? Not. Can we talk? Soccer practice. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. Of course, I'll be there. From that point on, our conversations became painfully businesslike. The kids, schedules, school, doctor appointments, nothing else. No one mentioned what had happened. It was like we'd all silently agreed to pretend a grenade hadn't gone off in the middle of our marriage. After a few days, I rented a small apartment about 20 minutes away. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, old building. The furniture looked like it had survived at least 3 previous divorces. It wasn't much, but it was quiet. The first weekend I had the kids, Noah looked around the apartment and asked, So, do you live here now? That question hit harder than anything Claire had said. I do for now, buddy. He nodded like he understood. Kids have a heartbreaking habit of accepting things adults spend years trying to process. Lily looked around too. Where's Mommy? She's at home. She thought about that. Can Mommy come here too? I smiled. Not today. She accepted that answer and immediately asked if we could order pizza. A couple of weeks passed. Then reality started doing something arguments never could. It started sending Claire invoices. The lawn needed mowing. The dishwasher stopped draining. One of the cars needed servicing. The insurance company called about renewing our policy. A fence panel came loose after a storm. Normally, I would have handled all of it without thinking. Now, I wasn't there. The first non-kid text from Claire arrived on a Tuesday evening. Do you remember the password for the insurance account? I sent it. No comment. The next day, the garage door is making a weird noise. I replied with the name of the repair company. Then, the lawnmower won't start. I explained where the spare spark plug was. Then, do you know why the dryer keeps shutting off? Lint filter. It was the lint filter. It is almost always the lint filter. Every message reminded me of something. Not that Claire couldn't learn these things. She absolutely could. It was that she'd never had to, because I'd always been there, quietly taking care of them before they became problems. And the strange part? I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired. Tired of being appreciated only after I was gone. About a month after I moved out, I got a call from Noah. Dad? Hey buddy, what's up? Are you busy? Never too busy for you? He lowered his voice. Can I tell you something? That immediately got my attention. Of course. Aunt Ashley still lives here. I looked out the apartment window. I know. And he hesitated. Mom and Aunt Ashley keep arguing. That surprised me. About what? I don't know. I just hear yelling. I didn't ask any more questions. Kids notice everything. They just don't always understand what they're seeing. A few days later, when it was my weekend with the kids, Lily innocently filled in the rest. Aunt Ashley had people over. People? She nodded enthusiastically. They were loud. Mommy got mad. Noah rolled his eyes. They stayed really late. That sounded more like Ashley. I didn't press them. The last thing I wanted was for my kids to feel like they were reporting on their mother. But it planted a seed. Maybe Claire was finally seeing the version of Ashley I'd been living with for years. Another week passed. Then Claire called. "Hi," I said. There was a long silence. Then, "You were right. Just 4 words. No excuses. No anger." I leaned back in my chair. "This isn't about being right." "I know." Another silence. Finally, she said, "Ashley's different now." I couldn't help smiling sadly. "No." "What?" "She's exactly the same." Claire didn't respond. "The only thing that's changed," I continued, "is that I'm not there anymore." She exhaled slowly. "I didn't see it." "I know. I thought you were overreacting." "I know. I should have listened." I closed my eyes. "No." She sounded confused. "No? You should have asked." Silence. "You never even asked me what happened that day. You heard Ashley cry. And you decided I was guilty before I said 10 words." I heard Claire quietly crying on the other end of the phone. "I've thought about that day every single night. I wish I could take it back. I'm sorry." It was the apology I'd imagined hearing in that hotel room weeks earlier. The apology I'd waited for. The strange thing was, it didn't change anything, because some words arrive after the door has already closed. A week later, Claire asked if we could meet. We chose a small coffee shop halfway between our places. Neutral territory. Probably a smart idea. For a while, we sat there in silence. Finally, Claire looked at me. "Ashley moved out." I nodded. I figured. "How?" "Because you wouldn't be sitting here otherwise." She managed a small, tired smile. "It wasn't easy. I didn't think it would be." Claire looked down at her cup. "I kept defending her. I kept making excuses. I thought I was helping." She took a shaky breath. "I don't think I ever realized how much I expected you to tolerate." I didn't answer, because there wasn't much to say. She was right. I stared out the window. "You know what I keep remembering?" "What?" "You telling me to get out." Tears filled her eyes again. "I was angry." "I know. So why can't you let it go?" I finally looked back at her. "You didn't ask what happened." You didn't ask why." She looked down. "You didn't even let me finish one sentence." I shook my head slowly. "It wasn't Ashley that ended our marriage. It was the moment you decided my side didn't matter." She cried openly now. "I'm so sorry. I really am." "I know. And you still can't forgive me." I thought about that for a long moment. Then I answered as honestly as I could. "I forgive you." She looked up. "But forgiveness isn't the same as trust." Neither of us spoke after that, because there wasn't anything left to argue about. Sometimes you lose a marriage in one explosive fight. Sometimes you lose it one compromise at a time. Mine ended in a single sentence, and in words, "Get out." Months later, we finalized the divorce peacefully. We agreed on shared custody. The kids adjusted far better than either of us expected. Claire and I learned how to be good co-parents, just not husband and wife. Looking back now, people sometimes ask what really happened. They expect some unbelievable betrayal, some secret affair, some huge lie. The truth is almost disappointing. My marriage didn't end because of Ashley. It ended because the person I trusted most didn't give me 1 minute to tell my side of the story. And once that happened, I realized I wasn't living in a marriage anymore. I was living in a courtroom, and the verdict had already been decided before the trial even began. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.